You are listening to the Neurocareers podcast with Dr. K. Episode number 9.
Dear listeners, today in our International Neurocareers podcast, we continue our exciting journey of discovering amazing career opportunities in neuroscience and neurotechnologies. Please meet and greet the Sherlock Holmes of Art and artist John Baldwin. John will share with you his amazing journey of hiding and identifying hidden messages in art, in solving mysteries behind them by using brain sciences. Welcome, John. Hello, John.
Hello, Melina. How are you?
I'm doing very well, thank you. And I see a beautiful light that is coming from your window.
Yes, the sun is shining.
Yes, very nice, very nice. So how is the weather like right now?
It's very, very warm. Too warm to be outside for me.
Okay. The same is here. Too warm to be outside.
I'm not complaining. I love the sunshine. It's just...
John, can you tell us where are you joining us from?
I am from sunny North Devon. I was originally born in Sussex and moved to Devon some time ago. Rugged Jurassic coast and Atlantic. It's beautiful for any artist or anybody, to be honest with you. Got beaches of 1.5 miles of sand at Westward Ho. We have the fishing village of Appledore just down the road from me. Yeah, it's a beautiful part of the country, beautiful part of England.
Yeah, so you are surrounded by the mysteries, but the mysteries of nature, in a way.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, the strata of rocks is unbelievable. You can look at it and see the history of layers. I love that. Bit of geology.
Absolutely. And I think sometimes this mystery of nature inspires us to start looking for mysteries in other areas of our life. And in this case, in art.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, when you tackle a landscape, for instance, you see how the layers of stone and rock, shale, whatever it might be, form different directions. And as artists, we paint those directions with our brushes. And then it creates something. Hopefully, it has a hidden response with our viewers.
Yes, so we will get to it. First, we'll get to all those hidden messages. And hidden responses. That's so exciting.
Yes.
John, can you briefly introduce yourself so that our listeners would know who is this Sherlock Holmes of art?
What an accolade, Sherlock Holmes. Oh, okay. A fictional character. That could be me. Right. I used to be a plasterer many years ago. It was a family profession. I did my 5 years apprenticeship and 2 years of service and then went out into the world. Unfortunately, later on in life, about 2.5 years after moving to Devon, during an operation, I became disabled and I'm now a wheelchair user. An artist with disabilities. Much as any artist, I'm just an artist. I use my chair in some of my work and it can become a hidden component sometimes. Disabilities in art isn't really talked about. It is something that is known about by art historians. There are artists that were disabled and the like. And I tend to use my situation to interject something more into the art. So it may be the experience of reach, for instance. A sculpture I did many years ago was just found objects, plastic bottles, sprayed white, and then my handprints were put onto those objects, and it demonstrated reach because I could only reach so high from my chair. I implement all these kind of hidden things into my art. I do, messages and Morse code and all sorts, if you can find them. I've been working on a project with Emotive and the Arts Council to explore art on a neurological level and maybe create different work, and maybe, who knows, maybe we'll find a new paradigm to explore art. It's amazing where my journey's taken me, because I started art. I tried to get back into a career that was accommodating. Unfortunately, it was something that I couldn't get into. And I started art to meet other people, meet like-minded people. I went to college, my local college, Petrock. Big shout out to Petrock. And then went on to Plymouth University and studied for my Bachelor of Arts. And here we are working with emotive headsets and exploring how we react as artists and as viewers. So is there a genetic predisposition to art? Is there something that we don't know about? The science is moving so quickly, it's hard to keep up as an artist. I'm not a scientist. That's the joy of me being me. I can explore art in my way, and response has just been amazing. Absolutely amazing.
That's a very inspiring story you are talking about. And I really would like you to tell it to our listeners so that those who might be using wheelchair, who might have certain disabilities, that they would see that there are ways to express yourself and even completely changed your career and be enjoying this career.
Yeah.
You mentioned that unfortunate event when you got disabled and you needed to use the wheelchair. That was actually the turning point for you to reevaluate what you want to do. And this was the beginning of completely different journey in your life.
Absolutely. The pursuit, as it were, is partly into my condition because I suffer from a neurological condition. I have always looked at the psychological values and the response to an installation. For instance, I was always amused by some of the comments that I still get today and asking about why the wheelchair, why there's all these kind of questions. And that interests me because you wouldn't go up to somebody, and just ask personal questions. But because I'm in this position, people feel, and people share. People share their experiences. My experience is my experience, and other people have other experiences. The stories are often funny. And the pursuit into perception, I think, is one of the things that interests me. There's an artist who is also a wheelchair user called Ryan Gander, who's based in Sheffield in England. He does some amazing work regarding perception. It's not about disability, it's about how we see. Really, I mean, him, the worker Sue Austin, who did some amazing work and a submersible wheelchair, was what's really inspired me. It made me realize that, you use what God give you, if you believe in a higher power, that is. And the responses I got from non-disabled people regarding some of my work, I found intriguing. There was one particular time I made some musical wheelchairs. You can see them on the website. Basically, when you propel yourself, it plays a record player underneath the chair, and you could choose your music. And one of the people that used the wheelchair with his son, I managed to have a chat with him at one of the evenings. I said, what do you like about it? He's like, the fact that it plays music. He said, the fact that it plays music is just amazing. I said, but what else? He said, it was the feeling of pushing my own son in a wheelchair. It was almost contradictory because pushed him when he was in a pushchair, but it wasn't the same feeling. And that just enthralled me. I looked into the work of Tony Conrad, a musician, fantastic musician, John Cage, 433, Silent, all these kind of things that stimulate what people believe to be good art. And Duchamp said art was in the mind. And I really believe that we have an opportunity to explore this, not from a scientific level, but from an artistic level. And it's taken me places. I get to speak to lovely people like you. It's been amazing.
John, when people start new journey, there are many challenges, especially at the beginning. So when you decided to become an artist and pursue your art studies, actually this is what you did, what was the process like for you? What were the challenges and how you were solving them? And maybe other people helping you to solve them in a way, how community was contributing to this, and what challenges are still you see as unsolved that needs to be solved to provide more career opportunities with disabilities?
It's a big question. That's a big question. How could we solve the problems, the barriers? I think it comes down to barriers. I think that a lot of people in positions of, making it accessible, haven't experienced it from our level. Let's put it that way. Any disability, not just people that need mobility issues, but cognitive. I have issues with my cognitive functions, and it's the learning processes can be slower, and that has to be accepted. And within the society, John Swain and I can't remember the other lady did a book about the structure of living now. We are living in a 9-to-5 sort of. We're expected to be at work at a certain time to do the work. It doesn't work like that in disability. There are days where duvet days. Some artists call them duvet days. Me, I just call it a lazy day.
That's okay.
Just be done with it. I think there needs to be more people teaching from a disability perspective. So we're seeing things change for the positives. We're seeing a lot more disabled people on TV, films, acting, teaching roles. It is changing. It's changing very slowly, very, very slowly. And some places are better than others. There's certain issues where the world is promised. And unfortunately, in the real world, it can't always deliver. And we have to accept that and be determined and find another way. And there's always a contingency. You'll be amazed at how many people that have conditions that have to deal with them on a daily basis will have their own plan. And those plans are really important. I share my access document on my website because it helps other people write their own. You can say to galleries, you can say to establishments or anything else, this is my complications. This is what sometimes I can do. And sometimes it is really funny. And it is. I mean, for instance, I remember talking to one of my neighbours. There was a bird on top of her roof, and I was calling it a penguin. I didn't even realise I was calling it a penguin. And my neighbour looked at me like I had two heads. Quite rightly. And then my daughter said, you do realise you were calling that seagull a penguin for the last 15 minutes? And it's like, no, I didn't. But hey, it's funny. And we had a laugh about it. It's about having a laugh. There are times to shout and protest. And there are times to sort of like say, okay, I understand that you can't do that. You're not in control of that. But the facilities are out there. They are out there. You need to ask for the help if you need it. I am stubborn, and I could have been a lot further forward than what I am now if I wasn't so stubborn. But I've met some lovely people who don't tell me what to do, but have you considered? There's those kind of ways of approaching certain delicate subjects. It's the ability to do some stuff. I mean, I've got loads. I mean, I live in a tiny little bungalow in Devon, and it's small. It is small. And I can't do the work that I want to do because I want to work large, but you have to have the space. Mm-hmm. And it would be lovely to develop a space which is for people to create larger works in an area, beautiful area like Devon. Come to Devon and make some art. Mm-hmm. The therapeutics of art, speculative from a side, depends on which way you look at it. From an artistic point of view, mm-hmm. immensely. From a scientific point of view, it's hard to quantify. And I hope with people like you and me working in neuro approaches and looking at how things change and how we can change them for the better. BCI is used for a lot of people with locked-in syndrome. Painting with a BCI is not unheard of. Using the ball, bit of paint, a nice cage frame, you can create some real great abstract work. But then what else can we do with it? What else can we achieve? The ideas that using neuroscience in art and then be a crossover between the two to help everybody create something better.
What was your favorite part of doing your art studies, John?
Oh, I love the research. I love those branches that come along by accident. You think you're studying one thing and you've got this idea and that could be right. You know, as scientists, you must have those kind of moments. And then all of a sudden you find yourself in a different place. Those moments of serendipity and explosions of consciousness. When you're doing something that you think that you're doing one thing, and all of a sudden in your mind there's a firing of a neuron, whatever it is, that all of a sudden explodes, and you're thinking about another project that you may have just had in the back of your mind or you've been working on for months, and all of a sudden you've got the answer. Those things I find fascinating. Those are the things that really drive me. My friend recently was talking about post-operative cognitive dysfunction in anesthetics, which again is another thing, you know, as a scientist or as a doctor, is fascinating. And understanding how we perceive art and how we interpret art on a very personal level. Let's not get this wrong. This is going on inside everybody's individual head. It's not visible, but we're going to try and make it visible. That it excites me. There's so many branches to neuro approaches where it affects everything. Gaming, design, films, VR, all of those things, the delivery of medicine, if we understand the brain better. And just being part of that story along, which is going to be continuous. I know I'm not going to be here forever, unfortunately. So it's those things that really excite me. Going to a gallery and meeting a complete stranger and speaking for an hour and a half. Those things are what capture me. And then going to a gallery and coming home and you don't think you've really been affected by what you've seen. And then you create, I did 28 pieces in one day, 28 pieces of artwork in one day. And that was just from a gallery visit. And I didn't think, but the brain was on fire. The hands were working, I was working, and a load of work was achieved. And it's those moments. If I could find a way of tapping into that all the time, you know, it could be very lucrative for one reason, for one thing. Yes, neuroplasticity, it's all those things that it links into. It just excites me. It's new technology, that excites me. New tech always excites me. I'm not one of the ones that has to have the newest tech, but I like to see what it does. And then applying it in an artistic application as well, because it captures other people's imaginations and then it inspires as well. Well, he can do it, I can do it. And I love that. I love inspiring people, and that's my joy from it. I get to do something I love. I sleep art eat art. It's all the time. When I'm eating, I'm reading. When I'm reading, sometimes I've got a easel next to me or whatever, and I'll just chuck a couple of lines on it, marks on it. I'm lucky. I am a very lucky man. I know this.
Yeah, so you immersed yourself in this field. Absolutely, you are immersed. You are surrounded by
And
it.
inspiring people is the best thing you can do.
Yes.
From children to adults, any age. Art captures everybody.
Yes, and that your fascination with what does really capture people's attention, what inspires. I remember you were giving examples in our previous conversations when the person just looks at a painting, and I think you talked about Mona Lisa. So you just look, okay, it's a woman, so what? Yes, but there is something that captivates so many people for generations. So that is that hidden message that you're looking for. Can you tell more and just give some examples of those hidden messages that fascinated you?
Hidden messages, yes.
Yes.
Right. I put codes in there. I can use color theory. I try to stimulate the viewer in some way. The hidden messages are something that I put to be found. People want to look at them and see if they can find them. That's great. I am not going to tell them.
Mm-hmm. You're being secretive.
I am being a little bit secretive. A lot of work goes into some of them. Sometimes it almost develops on an unconscious level. There are sometimes I've created what I thought was an abstract piece and come back to it, and there's a painting there that everybody can see. The music pieces I did, I took some records and I drilled through the records and then recorded the records playing, but with the damage or with the alterations. People were hearing all sorts. People were hearing dead relatives. Oh, it was like playing a record backward and satanic verses. Honestly, it was very strange. And that kind of hidden stuff, there's some artists that want to shock or triggering emotions. I'm trying to be a little bit more subtle than that now. In my earlier stuff, I used shock factor, chucking a wheelchair down the stairs. Everybody, it was an empty wheelchair. For me, it's just a tool. For someone else, it's the symbol of disability because you see the blue sign. So you've got all these hidden messages. One piece I did, paradigms, there's a hidden message through the eyes of the skulls. There are words. You have to see it in person to actually even read them because I can't pick it up on a camera. So you have to visit the piece and you'll have to put those words into certain order and then you get some writing. So there's all these little games, I suppose. Love a crossword. I'm not very good at them anymore, but I love games. It's finding codes, isn't it? I mean, with your profession, it's unraveling those codes, those meanings, those firings, those whatever it is, and trying to understand if it can be repeated, if there's a relevance to it. And I think that's why I put hidden stuff in there. And I'm doing an exhibition. I'm working towards an exhibition.
Yes, this was my next question. So those messages that you're hiding, you decided to create a project to invite even more people to hide their messages. So can you tell our listeners about that?
Absolutely. A call out to artists, scientists, anybody, young and old, to create a piece of artwork with the idea of hiding something in there, whether it's a part of themselves or a message, anything, or a piece of work that has created an emotional response from somebody, whatever it might be. Writing, video, photography, you name it, we're looking at it. And the idea is then to create an exhibition from the chosen pieces. And then we're going to analyze both from an artist's point of view and from I hate using the term, but layman, someone who's not been trained in the arts, an outsider art, whatever you want to call it. An outsider art was a description given to artwork that was created in asylums for disabled and neurodiverse people. And it used to be part of the therapy. That kind of thing all links in. It was so popular, we extended the deadline. The website is called thehiddenresponse.com. There's hidden things in the website which you can possibly find. I want people to explore it and try to understand it. It's a little bit of me in there because I really struggle sometimes to understand the most basics of things. I learn through doing. I love the research, but sometimes I can't retain it. I mean, that's just the way it is. When we've got the exhibition up and running, we'll analyse it. People like yourself will be involved, hopefully, and we'll see where it takes us. I'm always optimistic. Some people blame the medication. I tend to look at the sun is shining, why not be optimistic? I have other projects similar, but they are not the same. So they're not run by us. And there's artists, a lot of the people that are in the collective, as it were, the curatorial team, the other people that are involved have disabilities and they're artists or they work in something else, maybe writing. So we have quite a nice group of people that are coming together. We're just asking people to join in. Don't know where it's going to end up. You know, at the end of the day, life's a journey. We know it's a journey, but we don't know the destination.
And that's the beauty of it.
Yeah, it's always the best. We're not sure where it's going to end up.
If we would know, it wouldn't be interesting.
We're going to invite some people if they would like to have their brain analysed whilst we talk about art, whilst we do art, and just generally chat. So there's going to be lots of different elements. There's the abbreviations on the Blondie experiment. There's some other bits and pieces that are going on with consciousness. Someone's interested in looking at consciousness, how consciousness is formed, and is there a way of tapping into that through art? I mean, the whole thing is it's exploded. I'm very happy it has, because it just shows you the importance of art. And I think we saw that during those COVID years, those lockdown moments. The explosion of artistic creativity when people were given that time to just sit. Some people, they just had an explosion of creativity, that kind of moment where everyone was feeling roughly the same sort of thing. People were apprehensive, obviously. I mean, it's a pandemic. And that you saw the art programs explode across the world as well. The art that was coming out of lots of different countries had a shared paradigm. Yeah, it was a shared paradigm. No two questions about it.
And probably people also started looking from outwards to inward, inside themselves, finally, after so many years, because there were that constant external stimulation. They started looking inside themselves and finding things and wanting to express those things.
Yeah, I think we're almost diluted to the image now. We're almost diluted. I mean, there's some reports that say that people that visit galleries only spend 9 seconds, if that, looking at a painting. This kind of work, we're encouraging people to look deeper, look for longer. One, it helps us with our research. And 2, it gives you more. When you start looking at art deeper, it can give you back more. And when you start looking at some of the scientists looking at the grains in a canvas, the weave in a canvas, and you start looking into those other things, it just stimulates more and more neuroplasticity. I mean, it does. It fires the brain. We are creative monkeys. Let's put it that way. We make art because it makes us feel good, not just in the doing, but in the actual experience. And that is something worth exploring. There was an artist, Harold Cohen, who looked into the AI and how AI works and how it draws. And this all links in. Who knows where it would take us in AI? I'm not saying too much, I can't. But it's exciting stuff. It is exciting.
It is, it is. So, from what you were talking, I see your journey as, first of all, becoming curious when seeing art. What is inside? What draws people attention? What creates a change in people's perception, even in people's life, when they are facing art, when they're observing art? And that curiosity brought you to this concept of something hidden in those art pieces, hidden messages. And then you decided, why not to start purposely hiding messages in art pieces?
Artists have been doing it for years. For years, political messages, the royalists during the Reformation, there was hidden work. There was ways of communicating your beliefs or yourself to other people that knew those codes, knew those messages. It's fun. I like the joy other people get out of it. There's nothing better than giving someone the means to be creative. You know, we can all say, oh, yeah, draw me a picture. And most people will sit there and go, well, what do you want me to draw? Well, anything. Well, I don't know what to draw now. You've asked me to draw it because you haven't told me what to draw. And they're like, well, make a mark. I work with people that have creative block. I can't do this or I can't do that. I haven't painted for months or whatever. And there's some real simple ones. Just put an empty canvas in a room with an artist. Won't be empty for long because they'll keep staring at it. And they'll keep staring. And then eventually, you know, it's like, well, put something, you know, on your easel to make a mark. Just make one mark. As soon as you make one mark, you won't stop. You'll start to, and then there's that kind of thing that happens when a kid draws, when a child draws, they draw. You don't have to tell them. There's this kind of switch that as adults, you know, you get to a certain point in life and art is by some considered not a way to earn a living. And you're like, but there's other ways you can use art to stimulate other things. If you're a scientist and you're working on the problems of your lab at that time, yeah, and you've been doing it and you're just hitting that brick wall, go and do something else. Go and do something that's removed from it. And that breakthrough does come. And that kind of spark, yeah, if we could capture that, Alina, look what we could do. You know, honestly, yeah, it's exciting. I really enjoy the way art is sort of like taking me through all these different channels. I mean, I worked a lot with disability, obviously, but I also get to meet and talk to people in the medical world about my art. And it made me realize how much art, it transcends everything. It really does. There's no two ways about it.
Yes, it does. And one of our podcast episodes was with Dr. Elena Salias. She is a cognitive neuroscientist. She studies actually mass perception. How do we process time and numbers and lengths? But I think that's beautiful. That's very unique and interesting research. And she emphasizes the value of creativity in research. She does contemporary dance. And she says that she became an independent researcher with her own ideas only after she started doing contemporary dance, started doing this type of art, because it gave her creativity and added that essential component of not only methodologically doing things correctly, but generating new ideas, finding new creative ways to look at things, to create theories. That's very important. And I love emphasizing this connection between art and science in my talks, now in my podcasts. So I absolutely agree with this approach. And the idea of hidden messages, yes, it comes from a long time ago. I think even myths, if we're looking at mythology, there's also, yes, hidden messages.
Absolutely.
We just need to know how to read them.
Yeah.
Yes. Mm.
Yeah, absolutely. My friends and I have a great debate about cave art because we don't actually know what it was for, but we know it's there and we see it. We went through this whole thing about the performance of cave art. How hard must it have been to reach the top of that cave? How did they do it? Okay, did they fill the place up with earth? And then, so there must have been those engineering processes that were going on in early man and woman that stimulated those jumps in evolution, those moments of why is that creativity? Why draw a bison on the wall? What's that bison? Oh, it's to translate, what's available in the area to eat. Or it could have been a dad drawing a picture for his son, daughter, or whatever, with the flames flickering. It looked like it was moving. With the texture of the cave, maybe it looked like it was moving. So there's all these kind of talks that we have. And I love this because we send each other stuff. And that's what I enjoy, is the community as well. And my community is now going into science, which is another thing, which, I'm learning loads.
Yes, that's the next question. So first, curiosity. What is hiding behind? Then, okay, hidden messages. And now let's use those hidden messages. Let's facilitate people's imagination. Let's make them curious now. Yes, I already got curious. Now let's spread it amongst people. Let's make them curious and wondering about art. But that wasn't enough for you. And your mind brought you to the next step. Okay, so now what makes people to respond to those hidden messages? What neural processes are contributing to that?
Yeah.
Tell us about this journey. I know you attended BCI school, 130 hours of training. So tell our listeners everything about this.
Oh, right. At the moment, we are still looking into this. We are using the emotive headsets, the BCI headsets, linked up on a very, very simplistic kind of program. We're not the scientists. We're just looking for responses at the moment. We're going to see what we can find. And then we're going to share the results, people like yourself, and we're going to go from there. There's a few experiments that will happen. I'm pretty interested in the sensory experiments. The hidden hand, where the hand is hidden and yet you can still feel a dummy hand being stroked. I find that fascinating, the way the brain can just tap into that. To be honest, I think it's too early to answer that at the moment. We're using the emotive headsets. We are still in development, scarily so. But it's always developing. And I'm trying to make the exhibition, or the tutorial team and I, trying to make the exhibition almost for everyone. And this is almost an impossible task because you can't please everybody all of the time. However, the idea that certain things are hidden within an object always makes that object more interesting. The knowledge of that hidden message may invoke something. The fact they're being monitored with the EEG, BCI, it may have an influence on what we're doing. That is all. I know this, and this is when people like yourself come in, very helpful to me. And I would say it's in development. That's all I can really say. It's very difficult to pin it down. You've been doing, and pinning things down, it can be the hardest thing.
I think that you pinned it down perfectly. What you are doing now is very close to the field of neuroaesthetics.
Yes.
Evaluating the neural processes as a response to art.
Yeah, I mean, Siki and Ramachandran did an interesting paper in regarding the neuroaesthetic. And the neuroaesthetic, I don't know if it would be a dangerous thing. I mean, advertising could totally use it, which is a scary idea. But it's been used for a long time, hasn't it? I mean, color theory, all of those things that make something appealing to us. Sugar in food, for instance. It's the sugar. It is the sugar. And art, for me, is my sugar. That's my addiction. I'm looking forward to the next 2-3 months to see what we actually find and where it will go from there. I know there's a lot of people that are itching to find out because I get the emails. Could you tell me? Yeah.
Yes, I'm also. Yes, I'm very curious to find out about the results.
Oh, I'm flattered. I'm flattered that you are. I am flattered.
So you are collecting information about the electrical activity of the brain while people are looking at art, while they have this experience. And your main goal is to see what response does that art evoke. And you are specifically thinking about those hidden messages, though they have some impact on people's neural activity. I think that's a beautiful idea, and it can be pursued in many different ways. So let's wait and see. We will wait for 2-3 weeks until your exhibition starts, and maybe then at some point we can meet again and you can tell us more about the results.
Yeah, why not? The more the merrier. We're going to be filming the event, so maybe we can do a link to that. And it's not just going to be one event, and I'm not saying any more than that. It won't be just one event. It will be more than one. So it should be fun. And hopefully we can get people interested in not just the art, but neuroscience and start looking at it in a slightly different way. I'm lucky as an artist. I'm not bound by the same quantitative restrictions that scientists are bound by. But because of that, it may give us insight into areas that have been missed. I mean, who knows? Who knows?
For those people who are artists and they want to start exploring the art from the neuroscience perspective, can you share your experience in getting into the neuro field? What can you recommend? What books did you read? What literature? How did you get into this field of neuro?
Oh, the books I've read are immense, but I wouldn't say I've read them all. I use the Audible, so I listen to some of them, especially when I'm driving. I find it really easy to absorb when I'm doing something else and listening. Gombrich, Margaret A. Bowden, a fantastic book called The Creative Mind, Myths and Mechanisms. And it is insightful, absolutely insightful. That's a great book. Art and Illusion, another Gombrich. It depends on what mechanisms you want to explore. This is what I'm just working on at the moment. David Eagleman, Live Wired, fantastic book. Again, Incognito, David Eagleman, fantastic book. Psychology book. I think that we need to explore the actual psychology as well. It's part and parcel of experiencing what makes us. Tony Godfrey, Conceptual Art, really good book. And all of them touch on it. Every artist and a lot of these books, they all touch on the neurological and the neurological aesthetic. Duchamp's Fountain, another excellent book. David Lewis Williams, this is, and that's The Mind and the Cave. Brilliant. The Psychology of Art by George Mather. Excellent book again. and aspects of form. Now, I know this sounds like a really not anything to do with neuroscience or anything. It's an artistic book, but it talks about the character of biological form, and understanding the character of biological form, I think, will be somewhat important. That was written by C.H. Waddington. This book, it's a multitude of artists from Rudolf Arnheim, Cott, Dalk, Gombrich, Gregory, Owen, Lorenz. Fantastic book. Absolutely brilliant book. And Water, obviously. There you go. There's some reading material. Yeah, that's now getting away on the research.
Oh, you have quite a
I think it's
collection.
important to share. You know, I mean, we all worry about, you know, who's responsible for what idea. Does it really matter? Yeah, okay, the money comes into it and all the rest. But from an anthropological point of view, yeah, it's only the people that share their evidence and their research that are going to have an impact. And yeah, collaboration. Love to collaborate.
Yes, I think really creative people who have ideas and who do the work, they very often are not afraid to share. I know that some very successful people in the field of neuroscience help other laboratories, help other places to be successful by contributing with their developed software. We were helped tremendously by Dr. Gerwin Schock, who developed an equipment to momentarily see the changes in the brain activity during functional mapping, creating maps of human brain. He is so generous because he knows he will have another idea, he will have another software, because it's constantly evolving.
This is the thing. It doesn't matter about sharing ideas, because tomorrow you'll have another 10. And the day after, another 10, and another 10, and another 10. They may not be good ideas, but that's what evolves. Mm-hmm. You know, it's the idea that evolves, which creates those jumps in science, in technology. And everyone has a brain. Everyone has a brain. It's that idea of individuality and people that say, oh, I had a really good idea once. And you're like, oh, my God, you poor thing. Only once.
Yeah, that's so interesting. Actually, I was watching the interview with Elon Musk, and he said that from the time he was a child, he was exploding with ideas. You know, his brain is constantly generating ideas, and it's not easy even to live like this, because he says it's constant exposure.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it is. And the thing is, which ideas do you dismiss? Which ideas? So share them all. If someone likes your idea and then takes it further, then that's great. This kind of idea of keeping everything to oneself, it just doesn't work. People get discovered 10 years after their death, and then it's just like they were geniuses, and it's like, why didn't they share it? I think that's a waste. I think that's a waste.
I agree, and you were talking about the ideas contributing to these jumps in possible evolution, yes, in the field. So, talking about jumps, how do you see this field of hidden messages, hidden responses, and their connection to neuroscience in, let's say, 20 years from now?
Oh, ideally.
Yes.
Ideally? Okay, ideally. In a perfect world, I think that AI is going to make a massive leap in the way it will be a new generation of computers. Mm. It will be. There's no two ways about it. I mean, another 10 years, I think we'll have a better understanding of medicine delivery and how that affects the brain, and certain medicines that might be affecting the brain that we weren't aware of. It was like the anesthetic, the POCD. I think that the technology for the BCI is unlimited. I really do. I think that's going to continue. I don't know if we will go into the evasive way of, we see Star Wars and they get their mods, the modifications, Boba Fett and all the rest of them. I don't know if it's going to go that way. It may do. I think the ethical questions that creates a lot more in depth. But wearable tech, I mean, you only have to see the designer that uses the dresses. Do you know her?
Anouk Wiprecht.
Thank you very much. That kind of thing that she's doing. We're really there. I discovered her on the BTI.
Yeah.
Fantastic designer, artist, creative thinker. And we need to encourage the creative thinkers that science isn't scary, because there's plenty of people in the community of science and art and everything else that are willing to help and give their time. Those creative thinkers, artists and scientists, they think differently sometimes, but there's lots of crossovers in the analytical way we work sometimes, and the thematic practices, pataphysics, and all of those things that we share in common. But quite often creatives don't want to do the writing. I don't want to do the writing. And you're like, what do you mean you don't want to do the writing? I love writing now about my art. I used to hate it. I used to absolutely detest it. I want to make art. Why do I want to write about it? Oh, no, this is what I'm trying to do. This is why I'm writing about it. Those creatives need to understand that engineering is not far away from design. Really isn't. You know, a few years in university maybe. And that's the only difference. That's what I'm looking forward to in 10 years, that kind of Star Trek kind of crossover where people realize that it's about sharing the information and crossing international waters and borders that really will advance us as human beings. And who knows? I mean, it may have effects on disability, how we treat disability, how people live with disability. A BCI is already doing that. You know, people can do things with the power of their mind. And 50 years ago, complete science fiction. And everybody was like, oh, I can't wait to have a watch that I can look at Auntie Doris in Dartmouth. And now it's commonplace. And that's happened in a short. We need thinkers, we need creatives, and we need the science to gel. And I'm hoping in 10 years, that's going to really start changing the way we teach and the way we think and the way we learn. The idea of matrix downloading things into the brain to give knowledge, who knows? Maybe 10 years, it may happen. Who knew that David Eagleman would invent a vest that vibrates, that is giving people the ability to understand their world better? That's where it's going, I think. 10 years is going to be amazing. And I'm still only going to be young.
Absolutely. And maybe already with the new exhibitions, bigger reach, and maybe with that project that you talked at the beginning of our podcast, when you would like to have artists to come to this place where you live, to this beautiful nature location and do art. I really wish you to have this possibility, and for you and for other artists. I think that would be amazing.
Yeah, we get a lot of people come here on holiday, and a lot of people that they're not the tourists. They don't want to see loads of touristy things. They come away to have a break from what they do. It would be great to have some of the science community come down and actually work on a creative level. That I think would be interesting, and working with people that aren't artists but approach it in a similar way. It's going to be fascinating. Hopefully I'll come visit you as well. We can do some art.
Yes. Oh, I like that. That would be amazing. Yeah, maybe we can create an exhibition here in Florida and do some installation or something in combination between art and science. We have so many students here that are passionate about neuroscience and creating a possibility for them to create and merge those two disciplines.
Absolutely. Merging the two practices would be amazing, wouldn't it?
Okay, I think we have already quite a few projects in front of us, which is beautiful.
Yes, we're going to be busy for years.
Yep, that's the point. I think creating something, leaving this legacy after, so that already those who are coming after us can continue and propel the evolution, yes, of humankind forward. So that's the beauty of it.
We need some environmental scientists as well to save the planet. And who knows, we can do that with our brain.
Absolutely, absolutely. By using brain-computer interfaces. That brings me to the final point of our podcast. The name of our podcast is Neurocareers, Doing the Impossible. What do you think can be done by merging science and art that would become possible after this merge that currently still isn't or seems to be impossible?
Okay, Melina, imagine walking into a gallery environment or an exhibition or a shop, for instance, and that shop has some gates that maybe take a scan of your brain and it changes the shop to what you want it to be. And knows you're coming in for potatoes, so it gives you a selection of 20 potatoes. Or the artwork changes for your mood. You go into a gallery, you're feeling a bit low, and the artwork takes you into an exhibition space, and the artwork knows that you're feeling low and shows you uplifting art or plays uplifting music or whatever it might be. Imagine a world where it crosses into the boundaries of invasion, but imagine a world that knows what you're thinking. Because there's a lot of advertising people that think that they know what we're thinking.
Neuromarketing.
That's one thing that worries me, actually, is how the technology could be used. And that's something we really need to concentrate on in that crossover. Could be a bad thing. We need to be ethically minded when we're using this tech and we're merging these ideas. Yeah, I mean, to create something that could change how a sculpture reacts or how a painting presents itself to the viewer will pretty much change everything. Be very Blade Runner, wouldn't it? Let's hope it's not so dystopian. But those kind of reactionary things that could make a world of difference to people. There's someone in a low mood, and we have the technology in our homes already with Alexas and all the rest of it. But imagine if that could detect those low moods. And who knows? I mean, it is all speculation. But the technology is coming, and it's coming fast. And it's changed 5 years, would you say? 5-10 years? Last 5-10 years have been amazing in the neuro world. Because young minds are coming in, the young university graduates, and people are coming in, and then they're starting to address not the silly questions, but the questions that no one really considered. They want, what would you use that for? It doesn't matter what we'd use it for now. Let's see if we can do it. Yeah, and then we can think about applications afterwards. And I think that's important as well. You know, we need to understand first before we apply. But the application will be interesting. And there's lots of ethical considerations from a scientific, but also from an artistic point.
Yes, they are, and that's why we are planning in our podcast actually to invite neurophilosophers and neuroethicists. These are also available opportunities in the field of neuroscience that people are exploring, and they're making their careers in their fields because this becomes so important. All those ethical questions and philosophical questions that are related to neurotechnologies. So I want to invite all our listeners to stay tuned for our future podcast. We will be exploring all these important questions. So, John, it was a great pleasure having you on our podcast. I'm sure our listeners will be listening with a curiosity and will get inspired, adding either of those components, the one that is missing. Yes, scientists will add art component, and artists will become more curious about science.
It's an exciting time. Yes, brilliant. Well, thank you for having me.
Of course. It was a great, great pleasure.